This Walk-On Coach Conversation brought to you by Fareway of Waukon and Waukon State Bank. Football schedules out for the next 2 years. Head coach Chad Beermann joining us. And Coach, kind of high school football's version of Christmas morning on Monday, seeing what the schedule is going to be. You knew the majority of your opponents already, but seeing who the state matches you up with, I'd imagine it's a pretty exciting time.
Well, it's interesting. That morning we got an email from the state that said one of the big issues they were having was that apparently a lot of the 1A schools wanted to play A schools. They didn't want to play up or didn't want to play in. So they had a hard time matching those up. So I wasn't sure what we were going to get. I mean, I know we thought where 1 and 2 probably would be. So I was curious if they would throw one of the 1A schools at us, but obviously they didn't do that. So yeah, it was interesting to see who we got and to see who some of the other teams in our district ended up with.
And when it came to non-district opponents, you got 3 Northeast Iowa Conference opponents. One of them a 2A school in Crestwood. Of course, Waverly and Decorah still on the schedule. How important was it to keep some of those rivalries going that the kids face in other sports?
Well, I know. I think we had Cresco and Decorah 1 and 2, or probably the other way around. Actually, I think we had Decorah and Cresco 1 and 2, and then we had the majority of the other Northeast Iowa Conference schools down as possibilities. So I wasn't sure what would happen. We're middle of 2A, so it's kind of a big step up. But we're at kind of the level where we expect that, and so it'll be a good challenge to open up with Waverly. I think they had some good pieces, young pieces coming back, so they should be pretty salty this year. And then obviously Decorah is a fairly known product year in and year out. And then you got Cresco with a new head coach, so it'll be a little different. Of course, they'll have a couple games under the belt, so we'll have some idea of kind of what they'll be up to when we get to them.
As for your district, a lot of familiar opponents and some new faces as well. What was your reaction when you saw your district opponents last month?
Well, I think the big surprise obviously is Waller coming down to 2A. They're I don't know, the second or third biggest, maybe the biggest school in 2A this year, coming down from 3A last year. And I think they played a 4A schedule in the past when a lot of the Catholic schools played up. So I mean, that was kind of the big eye opener. And then the fact that I think Jessup might be the smallest or one of the very smallest of the 2A schools that they're up in 2A. So that was kind of a surprise. I mean, most of the others, we had NFE obviously and Olwine and Union been a few years, but Union's been a district opponent for us in the past recently too. So.
And seemingly from a geographic standpoint, you've seen situations in years past where sometimes schools drive through a town to get to another town that's a district opponent as compared to playing the team that was closer to them. Seemingly, they matched it up a little better from a geographic standpoint. Just taking a brief glance at that, would you agree?
Yeah, other than obviously Dubuque's a little bit out of that room range. It's always nice to have, like, for district games, New Hampton and Cresco, obviously, just because they're right there. But yeah, as far as that, in the past we've had Columbus in our district and New Hampton not in our district, so you go through New Hampton to get to Columbus. So that's been a situation like that. So geographically, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to keep us up in the corner here. But obviously there's some that are a little closer, but we'll play, like I said, we try to get New Hampton non-district too, and that we didn't get that. But yeah, it makes sense the way they paired it up, I guess.
And obviously your string of success over the last half decade at Waukon has been real impressive. And just the mere fact that there's a standard that has been set by many players past, does that just create some hunger to kind of to achieve that standard and reach it to a higher level like the guys have in the past within your program?
I would hope so. We're going to be really young this year. We have some proven kids to be back as seniors, obviously. But there's going to be a lot of kids that were sophomores stepping up as juniors. So we have to replace the entire offensive line, the entire defensive secondary, most of the defensive line. Those are big holes to fill. There's some kids I think that can do it. We got some pretty good looking sophomores as far as it'll be juniors that are going to have to step into a lot of those roles. And we'll see, where it's at. And a lot of them are out for track. We got good numbers out for track, and that's one of the big things for us. We got 65 boys out for track right now. So they're getting better, and then we'll see how the summer workout goes and see where we're at.
As a 2A school, you're going to play an 8-game regular season, and you have 32 teams qualifying for the playoffs. As a young team that you just touched on, does that give you a little bit more of a margin for error in those early games to make sure you can take where you're at and build from there, as compared to maybe a 16-team playoff qualifying schedule that would maybe put a little bit more pressure to get to a high level early on?
Well, I think as far as they're not using strength of schedule or any of those metrics to determine who makes the playoffs. So you can take a loss early. Obviously, you don't ever like to lose, but last year that was actually a plus for us, I think. The big thing is you don't want to get anybody hurt that costs you going ahead. And that's actually more of a concern playing up against the bigger schools. Is just a lack of depth. You might end up with an injury or two that you put you in the hole going into the district. But those 3 games don't count against you if you were to lose those. As far as going into the playoffs, only your district record and 2A counts. So that'll be a good time to get some growth in. But just like I said, it's a tough schedule to open up with a young team. So we'll have to learn a lot and learn in a hurry.
All right, Coach. High school football will be here before we know it. I know we got a lot of things going on prior to that. I know you got a track meet to coach some throwers here this afternoon, but it'll be here before we know it, and we'll look forward to talking some football come fall. Thanks for taking the time this afternoon.
All right, thank you.
Chad Beermann, head coach of the Waukon Indians.